Hello, everyone. It's Brian Underwood, and I'm super excited to share with you a conversation that I had recently with Elle. And for those of you that don't know Alex, I think you're in for a great surprise. She is unbelievable in terms of really getting to, have people look inside themselves to grow. I was scrolling through social media, saw one of her posts, and it caught my attention. And when I started diving into who she was, it was like a rabbit hole. I kept wanting to learn more and more, and I got so much insight. I don't know if you've ever read something, and when you read it, you thought, man, that is specifically for me. And it seemed like every one of her posts I could relate to based on something that was either going on in my life currently or something that I had been through. And so through this conversation, you're going to learn a little bit more about her passion for people, her passion for actually sharing and being vulnerable of her journey and what she's been through. And, I went out and got her book. I actually bought, I think, 10 copies of them and gave them to people at the time. The book was After the Rain. I know that she promoted it into Target. I just went on Amazon and bought it, and I love the book. I encourage each and every one of you to get it. Her upcoming book is How We Heal. And I told her that I'd love to do workshops about how we grow and have a workshop called How We Grow, but have her teaching her principles of how we heal, because all of us have past traumas or we have micro traumas. And when you heal those micro traumas, you learn more about yourself and you grow. And the more you grow, the more you have to give. And she's been doing workshops teaching people how to get to know themselves better, become more vulnerable, and get to the core of who they are, which gives you more strength to move forward, to gain momentum in every aspect of your life. And so she's world renowned. She's a best-selling author. But more importantly, I just love this conversation with her and can't wait to have her at more of our events. So if you take a look at some of her stuff, I know that you're going to get a lot of distinctions and a lot of growth. So hopefully you enjoy, and we'll talk to you real soon. It really has touched me, like your content and your vulnerability and what you've been through, and a lot of it's relatable. And so I'm just a very common sense guy. If I can relate to it, I know some of the other folks out there can. So how I came across you is I'm flipping, and one of your little things hit me at the right moment, and I look into it, and then I see you say, "Oh, my book's at Target." And I know it was a while ago. I was just scrolling back through your feed and this. And so then I ordered
I
ordered like 15 of them and gave them to friends of mine. And I was like, and every one of them have loved it, by the way.
Good.
And so I just selfishly, I wanted to meet you, to be just like perfectly frank. And and I know something good will come out of our conversation, because something good has come from your post just to me, and it's resonated with me. And so if you don't mind, kind of share with me where your journey began, because obviously a lot of your work feels like a lot of self-discovery, a lot of conversations with yourself that other people relate to.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, tell me a little bit about yourself.
So my journey to self-discovery, I love how you use that term and word, because I use it a lot, started about 11 years ago, really deeply rooted about 10 years ago. And I was in this phase in my life where I had no idea who I was or what I wanted, but I was ready to find out. Right. And so when I was 22, I took a year off of everything. I lost friends. I wasn't engaging in any type of romantic relationships. And I really started to change my mindset, because at the end of the day, we often think that change starts with external forces, but change actually starts with us. And I wasn't doing the work 11 years ago to change myself until I had this kind of come to Jesus moment, like, this is not working for you, and you say that you want to heal and change and create a life of abundance and joy and ease for yourself, you have to be the one to start changing. And so I've been a writer all of my life. However, it wasn't until I started writing to heal myself that I knew that I had more power than I was giving myself credit for. And so all those years ago, I decided that I wanted a different life, that I wanted to change and become the woman that I knew that I could be. And it required a lot of shedding. It required a lot of starting over. And it required a lot of self-trust and a lot of getting lost along the way, right? Because no one is really talking about that either. And as a teacher and a journaling coach and someone who not only writes books, but wants other people to write their story, I'm really passionate about letting folks know that this is not an easy, seamless path. When you choose to heal and you choose to change, it is challenging. It is not this whimsical thing, that you see on Instagram, right? It's not this beautiful evolution that happens overnight. It is day by day, step by step, trying to get it right, a lot of failures. And so when I decided that I wanted to come back home to myself and figure out who Alex was, things changed for me. And it was a choice. It was a hard choice because when we're used to chaos and when we're used to confusion and when we're used or if we have grown up in chaos and confusion, we tend to think that that's our resting place. So dismantling that and deciding trauma is not my resting place, pain is not my resting place, I can do things differently in my life, and reclaiming my agency and autonomy, it opened up so many doors for me, not only as a woman, but as a mother, as a wife. I'm a mother to 3 daughters. I've been married to my husband 6 years, been together 9 years. So he came in when I was like in the thick of my evolution. And, it's interesting what happens when you choose yourself and when you choose to do things in a way in which that you thought was impossible at one point.
No, it's really cool. 2 things you said is traumas. And I have like a little quote, trauma as a teacher. I think every single one of us, and I think the awareness over the last several years has even heightened more in the world, whether it's social media or Instagram or just people's awareness and everything going on in the world, right? It's kind of crazy. Regardless of what your political views are, there's just a lot of heightened stuff, noise. You have a lot of micro traumas that happen throughout your life, macro traumas. But one of the things you said is how to get to know yourself. And I'm actually in the process of writing a book. I always had this imposter syndrome for 20 some years, and people told me 20 years ago, you should do it. And I'm like, I didn't feel ready. Like what experience do I have? Just because you make money or are successful doesn't mean you have something to give. Like I felt like an imposter, but one of the premises of the book is around getting to know yourself. My initials are BU. So I always say, always be you. But the fact is most people don't know who they are. So they can't stand up for themselves. They can't grow themselves because they have to start with like getting to know yourself. So my curiosity when you said that immediately went 2 things. Number one, what was the defining factor? Do you remember when you said how you wanted to wake up to discover who you are? And then what was that process? Did you have a coach? Did you just kind of start reading, Googling? Like what was your process, day one starting? If you know what I mean? Like, do you remember like what that process looked like?
I remember that I wasn't growing. I didn't feel like I was growing. I didn't feel like the people around me were growing. I didn't feel like I was being nourished emotionally, physically. And at some point in our path, we can't keep turning a blind eye to the things that we know aren't working, right? And so realizing that I'm the common denominator in my relationships, I'm the common denominator in my life, that, okay, how you're doing things hasn't been working. It hasn't been satiating. It hasn't been fulfilling. Let's try something else. And I didn't know what I was doing. But I knew that what I was doing at the time was not working. And so, no, I didn't have a coach. I did explore my yoga practice. I did explore different teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh and Pema Chodron. And I explored who I was outside of everyone else. We often, as human beings, identify with who we are to other people. And when I'm teaching, I often ask my students and people who come to retreat and course with me, who are you? And then I say, here's the catch. You're not allowed to say who you are to other people. And people freak out because they're like, I don't know who I am. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a husband, I'm this, I'm that to all these other people. I'm an employee, I'm, a friend, a daughter. Like those are the lists, right? But no one is asking themselves, who am I to me? Who am I outside of the roles that I play in other people's lives? And back then, I didn't really have the language to identify that is what I was searching for. I was searching for who I was outside of who I was for everybody else. And that was my wake-up call. That was my invitation. The not knowing was my invitation to be like, oh, this is an answer I want to find out.
One of the things that I was just actually reading, which I have not, which I am going to download it. I was trying to catch some of the teachings that you said. I heard you say yoga, and then you said two other names.
Thich Nhat Hanh and Pema Chodron.
I always am interested, like who influences you, so I want to check them out. But and I have not looked up your podcast yet, called The Morning Walk, but yeah. I will.
Yeah, so that's actually my new podcast. It's called This Morning Walk, and then I just wrapped up my old podcast, the Hey Girl podcast, at the Kennedy Center last month, and that was really fun.
Oh, cool. So what do you discuss on, or what did you discuss on the Hey Girl? Did you say Hey Girl?
Mm-hmm.
Hey Girl. Can guys listen to it too?
Yes, you can.
Okay. And then what is the Morning Walk about it?
Yeah. So the Hey Girl podcast was 5 years old, and we talked about sisterhood, self-care, and finding community. And so I had a lot of different, beautiful, amazing women and some men on the show, sharing their stories of growth and expansion and entrepreneurship and self-care. And it was really wonderful.
Awesome. And then this new journey is the Morning Walk. And what is your outcome or vision or value that you're looking to put out in the world from it?
So This Morning Walk is a podcast that I host with my really dear friend, Libby Delana, who got me on my walking journey, which is so random, but I read her book called Do Walk, and it changed my life. So I've been walking every single day for 282 days, rain or shine. Awesome. And Libby has been walking every single day for 10 years. Hasn't missed one day. She's 60 years old. She's like a mentor to me. And she's this really awesome lady. And on that show, we talk about the lessons that we learn on our walks and how a practice that essentially just started as like, movement and getting up and out has morphed into this practice of meditation and self-care, and has really been a teacher for both of us. I mean, she's been doing it way, way longer than I have, but just to listen to her experiences is so magnificent as I continue to do my walking practice. And so we sit, we have tea, and we talk about the lessons from our walk. Very short micro podcast, but really transformative. And it's been really fun to do that with her.
I love that. Yeah. Physiology is it's so amazing when you do move, what it opens up in your body. And it is a form of meditation. I don't know if you've ever looked into like Joe Dispenza's work, but he talks a lot about like morning walk and morning meditation with walking and movement.
Oh, that's wonderful. I haven't, but I know that name. My husband, who is an athlete, I've heard that name and loves him. And so I didn't know he was like rooted in walking. That's really cool.
Yeah. His stuff's really, for some people it's out there just because of his language and nomenclature. It's very metaphysical, like he's almost like science around it.
Yeah.
But it's powerful. It really is. I feel so much better when I walk. And I think micro podcasting, like I always want something just in time. Like give me something in small dosages, like your little sticky notes that I can ponder and self-discover like in 5 minutes or less. And then I can like open up a rabbit hole for me and go. Some of these podcasts today, like I don't have an hour and 40 minutes to listen to it. I know it's great content, but sometimes like that little 5 to 7 minutes window can like shift someone's life and give them a discovery to start them on their path. And so, yeah, so I'm going to check it out for sure. One of the things I want to do is kind of maybe get into like this month. One of the things that I do for our community and then also just for myself, and I do it more for myself. I always pick a theme every month for my social media, and then I self-discover through that theme so I can share it, but I'm sharing it for myself. I'm not trying to talk at anyone. I'm really doing it for myself. Right. This month was relationships. That's why I was like wanting to capture you here at the end of the month. Because it doesn't matter if it's a personal relationship or friendship or a significant other relationship. Yeah. I believe the quality of our relationships determine the quality of our lives. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It has to start with the relationship with yourself. Yeah. I think so many of us underestimate that, we don't, we distract ourselves from ourselves, every minute of every day with something, and there's enough noise out there to do it. But if someone was listening to this and they're really taking this in and they're saying, hey, I want to start this, I want to improve the quality of the relationship with my significant other, what are some of the things that you would suggest for them to do?
What I would suggest first, and we're going to go back to the relationship you have with yourself, like how in tune and aligned we are with ourselves will really dictate how we can be in tune and aligned with someone else. And I know that some people really don't like that. They're like, oh, I don't have to love myself to love someone else. But here's the thing. I am a big believer that we should love ourselves just as much as we love other people. Why? Because I don't want to love someone else and then hate myself. That is not constructive. That's not helpful. And it also isn't fair to those around us. I often tell my students and my clients that self-care and self-love is an act of community care. Right. And so the first thing I would suggest and nudge people towards is, who are you to yourself? And as a writer, I'm always telling folks, show up on the page, literally title the top of your page, who am I to myself, and make a list. Right. So everything that you are to yourself and everything that you are to other people, it should align, because we can't forget about ourselves and think that we can show up fully for other people. And as a married person and as a mother of 3, I know this is easier said than done. I know that we are taught as humans to be selfless and to put other people before ourselves. But we have to kind of break down that barrier, because 1, it's not helpful. And 2, it distracts us from the possibility of living a full and abundant and grounded life, not just for those around us, but for ourselves. Like, we get one life. We don't want to die solely being the caretaker of everyone else without fulfilling our dreams, without fulfilling our wants and needs, and without vocalizing those things. Because again, if we are not speaking up and telling people what we want and what we need, how are we going to be able to do that with ourselves? It has to start at home. And when I say home, I'm talking about the self. And then 2, have hard conversations, because oftentimes in our relationships, things are going to come up that hurt us, that make us feel a way, that turn us off. And we can't hold those things, because if we hold those things, we are holding on to resentment. We are holding on to silence as a weapon. And we're also holding on to thinking that people can read our mind. Just because we love someone, it does not mean that they can read our minds or that we can read theirs.
And I know this from a people perspective, but a man's perspective. I did some work with Allison Armstrong years ago, and she's a lot in masculine and feminine energy. I mean, she has a lot of really good relationship content. And I know for a fact, like if I'm in love or I love someone and I'm like, smitten, whatever you want to call it, whatever emotion I'm feeling or that connection, I want to do whatever it takes to win for you. Like I like, you're my queen. I want to win for you. Like that's my purpose. And I think sometimes in a relationship, we don't see that, and we want them to, like, I feel like that it's almost, I'm set up for failure, because it's like you want them to do something, but you want them to figure out what to do without you telling. And I've always said, if you train a man properly, I don't mean that, but like understand, like, don't beat me up and punish me where I can't win, because as a man, as a competitor, I want to win. And if I don't feel like I can win, then eventually I'm going to suppress, or I'm going to shut down, but if you just tell me how to win with you, I'm going to do everything I can to do that. I don't know if that makes sense or not. I'm rambling a little bit, but I say that all the time. Like, just tell me what's in your mind. Like, tell me, like, I want to hear it. And, but that takes courage too, for some people, like, to say what you're feeling. And, that's something that I'm learning, is like, there's some people that they've been suppressed. Their emotions have been suppressed their whole life. I have, 2 beautiful boys, an 8-year-old, 9-year-old. And one of the things I'm learning as a father, and some of it's like generational trauma that I've been in, that I'm now discovering and journaling about and doing the work. But it's like letting them have their little feelings, like not trying to shut them down or tell them they can. And that was a very awakening thing for me, to do. And sometimes it's hard to do as the parent.
Mm-hmm. No, I feel that. And I love how you were saying, like, just tell me what's in your mind. And what I heard you saying is, tell me how I can see and support you. Tell me how I can show up for you. And that is what we need, especially in romantic relationships, because the world tells us that our romantic partner, even our family and our close friends, should know how to love us, should know how to care for us, right? A lot of the times people don't know. People are learning as they go. And if you look at how some of us were raised, our parents, they may have done, quote unquote, the best they could, but they didn't have the information to be a lot of them. I'm not going to speak for everybody. I know that my parents did not have the emotional intelligence to show up for me and see me and support me in the way that I deserved, in the way that I wanted. And I was a child. So as children, it's hard to vocalize your wants and needs, because 1, you're vulnerable, and 2, you don't have the language. And if your parents don't have the language, how are they going to teach you? Right. And so that is what I am learning within me raising 3 girls and being in a life partnership, is how do we give our children permission to name their needs? That is how we break cycles. That is how we dismantle this generational trauma that we're all carrying, is giving people their voice, especially when we feel like we don't have one. And I think the last point I would make, which goes across the board, all of this is boundaries. Boundaries are sacred. We need them. They are amazing.
But when you said that, you saw me grin, because I was like, I hate boundaries. Like, I
know. So everyone hates boundaries, but everyone loves boundaries, and everyone needs boundaries. Everyone hates them and loves them at the same time, and everyone needs them. And here's what I'm going to say to that. It's not just about the boundaries we set with other people. It is also about the boundaries we set with ourselves and how we honor that. Because if we're telling people what our boundaries are, right, but we continuously let them violate those boundaries, then we have to check in with ourselves. Like, why am I letting this person violate my boundaries? And where do I violate my own boundaries? If I say I'm logging off of my work computer at 5 p.m. and I'm still sitting here at 8 o'clock, that's a boundary violation.
Hey, don't say that with my staff on, okay? do not use that
against, your staff is about to start setting some boundaries with you.
Oh, they try.
Yeah.
No, but that is so true. I mean, I hear what you're saying, is that we have to be accountable to the promises that we keep to ourselves, and to protect our own energy, and to protect our own core. And I do think it's important. And I've learned a lot. I joke around. I don't know how this ended up happening, but I'm surrounded by a lot of headstrong, independent, liberal women that they have punished me, but I've grown through it, if that makes sense. I think I've added a little value to their life too, but I've learned a lot through that. And I think that when we do that, it gives us energetically the ability to show up better for other people when we're giving ourselves time enough to show up for ourselves, or to honor our own commitments to ourselves. And sometimes honoring our commitments to ourselves is the hardest thing to do, because a lot of us have this people pleasing nature in us. I know that we're talking about generational cycles. One of the things that I'm learning, and I'm sharing this because I love your take on it, is, like my mom. I love my mom. I had, I was privileged. Like I grew up in love, and we all have trauma from our childhood, and it wasn't. But my mom was a people pleaser. She was a smotherer, and she was a people pleaser. And later in life, I realized that, I was kind of estranged from my mom when she passed, but I was bitter. I was mad. Like I didn't have the emotional intelligence to dive into exactly what it was, but I was pissed at her for not standing up for herself with my dad and not being who she was. Like, you know what I mean? Like she lived her life for everyone else. And, my sister, she's going through some deep work now. She's 10 years my older, a lot smarter than me, but she had the same resentment, because our parents are our examples or model of the world, until we get the awareness and our brain develops. And, I could have never said that in my teenage years because she did everything for me, to the fact where I got in college, I didn't know how to do laundry. Like, wow. Like, I try to find girls to date to do it, or I just go buy new clothes. That's awful. Look at you looking at me, but that's the truth. Good.
No, but that is so true. It goes with what I just said earlier. Like we have to know ourselves, and that starts. It really does start with our upbringing, but then it also starts with making the decision to. I'm sure you know how to do laundry now, right? And so it's like. But it really does start with making the decision to advocate for ourselves and to bring value to our own lives, and like if we don't learn how to do that at home with parents or with even in our own lives, like it's really challenging to move through the world. It's not just about learning how to do laundry. It's like a laundry list of things that we miss out on learning how to do because we are so used to other people doing it for us, or because we are not able to advocate and say, hey, no, I can do that for myself, or we've never had to, right? So it's cyclical. Yeah.
Yeah. It creates dependency issues. For me, abandonment issues. Like one of my coaches that I talk to frequently, she said, it's ironic. You're bringing, you had this smothering attachment with your mom, but then also later in life, it was an abandonment. Like, and her and my dad actually got a divorce, in my 20s, when everything that they wanted to paint was, white picket fences and Stepford wife type of stuff. That wasn't reality. And, so that's, through discovering that, I'm learning a lot about myself. I know. And that's like, so that's how I came. Like when I read your book, there was a lot of things that just made me go, just connected a lot of dots. I'm sitting here reading something that I want you to elaborate on. I literally it didn't matter which one it was because a lot of your stuff just talks to me. It resonates in my soul. Okay. But it's that hard truth. You may have to walk away from people that you love. Mm-hmm. I don't know how I internalize that, but I'd love for you to kind of share that meaning of how someone might interpret that.
For me, that hard truth has shown me so much about honoring myself, about honoring people that I love, even if we have to part ways and love one another from a distance, and about honoring boundaries. I think so often we're taught that we are supposed to stay with people that we love through thick and thin, even if they mistreat us, even if they abuse us, even if they aren't good for us. And so that hard truth is rooted in making a decision to walk away from someone or something that is no longer in alignment with your life and your path, even if you love them. And I think that's important because, especially in familial relationships or close-knit relationships, because we're not taught to do that. We're taught that, blood is thicker than water. That's your family. You kind of, you stick it out and you don't complain. But I want to invite people to reflect on the relationships that you have in your life that you love them deeply, but you're not in alignment. You know that the relationship is unhealthy. You know that you don't want to be in relationship with them, and vice versa, but you're sticking it out because you love someone. Sometimes the most compassionate thing we can do for people that we love when things are misaligned is to take a step back. It doesn't mean you're apart forever. Maybe it does. But the space allows clarity to show us what we need to see.
No, I love that. I mean, and what you're saying too, it's also a lot of times perception or conditioning of models of the world, right? Like death do us part type of thing.
Right. Which
and then
I don't
we end up
believe
being in a toxic relationship forever.
Forever. Suffering.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a lot of people that need to hear that message, because I think a lot of people are suffering and feel like their suffering is justified, or they're in prison, but they're in prison with themselves because of either the model of the world, fearing what other people might think about them, or even at some level, like their beliefs, their core values of what they believe that should have been, hanging on to it too tight, if that makes sense. Like even in a business relationship, I always, something I say a lot is, love your family, love the ones that you're close to, but choose your peer group, choose the people you spend the most time with. And there's a big difference. I can love my family and never talk to them, but I can still love them. And, if I need to show up and they're in a time of desperation or need, I can be there. But if it's a toxic relationship, even if a family member, I need to choose to stay away, and because we become who we hang around most. That's why we have to spend time with ourselves and get to know ourselves even more. But
yes.
But you said growth is learning to step away from the people and the situations that rob you of your joy and disrupt your peace, which is kind of like a
follow-up to the hard truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think growth is so uncomfortable. I know. I know that growth is so uncomfortable. But here's the thing. We have to evolve. We cannot stay the same. Even if we don't want to grow, we will. Even if we don't want to change, we will. And realizing and honoring that you get to decide who you spend your time with, what brings you joy, and how you're going to access that joy. If it does not bring you a sense of ease, and this doesn't mean relationships are easy, but we know the relationships that cause chaos in our lives, and we know the relationships that make us feel relaxed and ourselves and easeful. And so that sticky note is an invitation to look at the relationships that you have, the growth that you need to lean into, or the growth that you're going through, and see how you can change and shift within that, even if it's uncomfortable.
And it's going to be uncomfortable.
I think always.
But that's how you grow, right? Like I always say, fitness is the point of not pain, but being comfortable, getting uncomfortable. Like it's pushing yourself to a threshold where you feel it. But if you're going to be fit, whether it's emotionally fit, physically fit, you can't be fit without pushing to a point where you're uncomfortable. And the realization of that is what you said, is like when I hear joy and peace, the only way to me for real joy, at least this is my experience of the world, I'm the happiest and I feel the most joy when I'm growing and I have more to give to other people or give to the world. If I'm not growing, I'm stuck in this mundane, I don't know, just you get sometimes stuck in a pattern. And, then I become miserable. Like if I don't have a lot going on or I'm not growing and doing something with purpose, I find myself becoming miserable. Like if I like vegging out every now and then, watching a show but if I'm doing that too much, I literally become just miserable. And so I love hearing you talk about your personal growth and when you're facing yourself. I think that's the one thing that is the scariest that most people don't ever do is look in the mirror to face themselves.
Yeah.
And when you face yourself, sometimes you're not going to like exactly what you see if you're willing to be honest with yourself. Not saying it worse than it is, but just be honest with yourself so you can get yourself to where you want to be or some of the things that you aspire to be. And so, so when you say that, it resonates because, but on the other side of that uncomfortableness, how have you felt? Like, so like, has it been worth it? Has it been worth the struggle and the pain?
Yes, it's been liberating. I often tell people the growth may be challenging, but the freedom is exceptional. And that is that personal freedom that comes with growth and giving yourself permission to go through every growth cycle. I mean, look at nature. Everything isn't always in bloom. Everything isn't always beautiful. I mean, I live in Maryland. We get all 4 seasons here. Come the fall, we have a beautiful transition to autumn, and then everything is just dead until spring, right? So it's like there is a rebirth happening in our growth. Each and every time we choose to get uncomfortable, each and every time we choose to grow through the hard stuff, we find deep liberation and reconnection to ourselves, even in our lull or our wilting seasons, right? So I often say, honor the season that you're in. And that goes for everything. Look at the seasons of your life and honor where you are. We can't always be in a growth cycle. Sometimes we are going to be in a death cycle. And that is a part of our human experience. And that is also a part of resilience and finding new ways to lean into our personal freedom.
And you mentioned early when you were kind of talking about your self-discovery, shedding. I mean, that's what shedding is.
That is what shedding is. Exactly.
So I just wanted people to hear that even though it's tough, it's the most liberating thing. It's the most joyful thing. On the other side of it is freedom. And there's nothing, more beautiful than truly being free.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Tell us about your new book and what inspired it and what we can expect from it.
Yeah. So my new book is called How We Heal, and it's essentially teaching folks how to tap into their personal power and personal freedom by way of healing in ways that feel accessible. And of course, as a writer, it has a lot to do with the courses I teach. So I teach writing to heal. So I'm inviting people to get on the page and really unpack their voice, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, and see what they can find out about themselves and their healing and their patterns. And then also to shake things up a bit, I interviewed some really amazing women about how they heal. So there's a section in the book called How They Heal. And we have folks from Olympians to authors to psychotherapists to artists sharing how they heal outside of their profession. And so essentially it's a collection of healing for folks who are looking to diversify their healing practice, but also get started. It's the step 0 to how you get to step 10. And so I'm really excited about it. It's on sale for pre-order right now. And I'm going on a 7-city tour in November. And we're really going to be diving deep into our healing work in a way that people can understand and hopefully share with the masses, because I find that healing and wellness can feel kind of off-putting, kind of really rooted in like elitism sometimes. And while I think science is great and science-backed research and information is absolutely great, we also need folks to be able to understand what people are saying in layman's terms and to be able to connect with the words and the work so that they can put things into practice and not feel confused after what they read, right? And so that is how we heal. How we heal is a accessible tool to put in your emotional toolbox as you heal.
My biggest thing is if you want to be great at business or whatever, you have to build yourself up. Like,
Period.
I also talk about the belief in who you are. And most people don't know who they are, but the belief in who you are and what you can do and what you can accomplish. If that's off, it doesn't matter what skills that you learn. It doesn't matter who comes in your life. All of that's going to be self-sabotage. You're never going to get to the height that you're destined to get to. And so a lot of the work that we do, even from a sales perspective, is just personal development work. Like, what's holding you back? What's limiting you? What are some of the scars of the past? And
those are good questions. Those are good journal questions. As an author and writer, I'm listening. I'm like, those are good journal questions right there.
My outcome was to introduce you to our community and to
Hi community.
Yes. And we have a lot of incredible people, and I know you have a lot of great gifts to share with them through the work that you've done, right? And you wouldn't have those if you didn't go through the uncomfortable experience. You wouldn't have that awareness or that liberation to give. So
that is max. So you let me know. I would love, even if it's coming in person and doing a workshop for a couple hundred women and really getting in there with them. I mean,
and a couple men too. You keep talking about these women.
Oh, sorry. Yes. And men are welcome. Men are welcome. I always forget I have a male audience too. It's so funny. It's like 10%. But I have them. So guys, y'all are welcome too. It's so funny. Side note really quickly. So when I was doing the courses last year, we had a lot of men because I wasn't very, the first year I wasn't really speaking to the men in my audience, which was my downfall because they're like, hey, can we join? I'm like, absolutely. But we had like 15 to 20 men join us each quarter, and some would join with their wives or their brothers or their sisters, or it was amazing. So healing is for everybody. My content is for everybody.
And I think women sometimes are more open to it. And
yes,
men
that is true.
need it the most, like this machoism, this testosterone, that's not serving you. It's not serving the world. It's not serving your kids. Like, I think that there's, I don't know.
Everybody can come. And when I'm teaching in person, men are there and they often like have to get vulnerable and it's really uncomfortable for them, but they end up thanking me to the side at the end. So
to the side, 'cause they don't want to do it in front of everybody. No, that would be great. I would really, I'd love that opportunity. And I think that it would bring a lot of value to a lot of people. And I do appreciate your work. I'm going to check out the podcast for sure. Yeah. And then we'll definitely be looking forward to that next book. So I need to check out some of your other books. Like, I know that they wrote it down here. What was your first book?
My very first baby book was Words from a Wanderer. I cringe every time I read it because I was 23 when I self-published it. And now I'll be 33 next month with a traditional publishing deal. And it's like, oh, okay. So self-publishing was beautiful, but I was also a kid. Like, I'm not a kid, but I was in such a different place, but people still buy and read that book in droves. And it's just it's a small, tiny book of affirmation.
They all on Amazon? Like, if
everything should be on Amazon. Yeah.
I would just appreciate it. And thank you, number one, just personally for, again, putting out what you put out, because it's touched my life and I know it's going to touch many others. And so hopefully we can do something else together, because I'd love to get you in front of more people, at least in our community.
I'd love that. You let me know.
I will for sure. Thank you, Alex,
for having me. Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Malia.
Bye, y'all.
See y'all.